Hello everyone, welcome to another race analysis video with Mo Allen. In this race, I am racing the Fresh Outta 24 Stage 4 Zwift race in the C category. This is on the BRAEK-fast Crits and Grits route. I raced this at 10 p.m. on a Wednesday night. As you can see, there are 19 riders to start. When I registered for the ride, there were only 8 riders, I believe. And that was only a couple of hours, maybe a few hours before the race was to start. So here we go. This route is interesting. From what I understand, this was created by some sort of contest or something like that. So this climb you see here is actually part of the lead-in. It's a short climb. So my Zwift Racing Score before I started this ride was 484. So that's sort of towards the top of the C category. I think the C category goes up to 519, right under 520. And I've slowly been creeping up in the C cat. I was B cat previously before the version 3 Zwift Racing Score update. I was 550-ish, I believe. And after the Zwift Racing Score, I went down to 475, I believe. So I'm in the C-Cat, slowly creeping up. My impression is I'm going to slowly creep just back up to the bottom of the B-Cat. So here you can see I was feeling strong on this climb. Good watts for me, but nice and controlled. Noticed that I was able to climb in front of the group and actually put some pretty significant gap into the group. So I wasn't prepared for this scenario. So here I'm just trying to stay within myself and get up the climb. It's a relatively short climb. So I just wanted to get up the climb and put some pressure on the group behind, but I wasn't planning to like break away and try to hold that gap at this point. I was just happy to start in this way and know that I started stronger than the group for whatever that's worth. So you can see the climb took just under 2 minutes there at 1 minute 54 seconds. So here I am just trying to put some pressure down on the downhill so that I can coast down and wait for the group. So I put in a little effort there. I'm trying to super tuck here if I can, and there it goes. So I plan to do this and just wait for the group to come back, which they slowly are. I actually do put some more distance into them. So my usual strategy is just to stay with the front group for as long as I can, unless I'm feeling strong as I was just there. I wouldn't with 20 kilometers to go. This is a 22 kilometer route with 227 meters of total elevation. So I wasn't planning to stay away from the group, and here they come back. So now that I'm back with them, I am planning to just keep an eye on the tactics of the riders, keep an eye on their watts in the list. I can immediately see that B Maxwell, you'll see that they start to put in some efforts at the front to break away. So I start to mark them specifically more than anyone else, just because I figured given how strong I was feeling up that climb and how relatively short the ride is, and potentially me being misplaced in the C-Cat, although at the end of this ride you'll see that that's Didn't necessarily bear out. It's not like I blew the whole group away. I figured I usually don't stay with any one rider at the front of a group this large. I'll let one rider get away and just stay with the group and hope they work to bring them back. Otherwise, that group is my new race, and that rider just broke away. So, but for this ride, I was willing to put in a little effort to stay with someone who broke away, just because my impression was I was a little stronger than the rest of the group. Whether or not that's true, I'm not sure, but I made a decision towards the end of this ride that might have negated my ability to figure out if that was actually true. So we'll talk about that when it comes. So here, just trying to get some recovery, stay, middle back of the group. Again, keeping an eye on the front, keeping an eye on the riders. With the little bumps that come, this is a fairly up and down, fairly rolling route. So with the little bumps that come, you'll notice some inevitable ramping up. So I just try to close those down. I think we'll see the first one happen here. Just try to close those down and stay at the front of the group. I felt relatively controlled. So yeah, the route starts with that climb lead-in and then goes through 3 laps of a rebel route called Nessie's Loop, which includes these little bumps you see here. It includes some other segments with like short efforts. So there's B Maxwell, you can see going off there. So I immediately jump across and try to close that down. And then from this point on, they're sort of on my radar as someone to mark. So here I'm just staying with them and seeing if they're gonna try to break away solo or just put in an effort. They are still putting in over 4 watts per kilogram. So I'm staying with them. We do put a little bit of a gap into the group. That doesn't last all that long, but I do notice that they do repeat these sort of tactics on any significant like inclines. So they're now on my radar. The power-ups for this race were a feather or an anvil, which I didn't know before the race. I've mentioned it in previous videos that I need to find out and seek out the information about what power-ups are available for the race. I don't believe it definitely wasn't on some Zwift events descriptions on the companion app, so I'm not exactly sure where you get that information. I don't think it's on the Zwift power description either, so I have to find out exactly where to get the information about what power-ups are available. So here we go, me and Maxwell together, the group behind, putting in an effort. A bunch of them over 4 or 5 watts to try to get back to us. The group was riding pretty well together. At this point, I am for 9 minutes into the race, I'm at 320 watts, which is pretty significant. So it's it's a good group, good effort. And there you see Maxwell going again, so I'm immediately trying to shut it down. They do get a bigger gap this time. But I feel like on the flats, you know what I don't like? If you see this, you can see that Maxwell got the sprint jersey, and it obscures my ability to see what kind of watts they're putting out. I use that a lot in the rider list to see the effort of the riders, so that to me is unfortunate, in the same way that having the graph up, which you can see I disabled the graph on the bottom that shows the zones over time and the heart rate. I disabled that because it obscures my ability to see what the distance is in meters to the riders behind. So Anyway, back with Maxwell here. We do have a 20-meter gap on the group, but again, I'm not gonna necessarily do work to keep that gap at any distance right now. I'm just marking Maxwell and waiting for the group to get back. So here as we approach this climb, I know that it's likely people are gonna wind up here, so I'm just at the front of the group watching the tactics, Maxwell and another rider go, so I immediately jump on it. At this point, I'm feeling nice and controlled, actually, able to put out, you know, over 700, 800 watts for a short period of time there. At relatively high cadence too, which is encouraging, or it was while I was riding. So happy to shut that down. We can see this rider also, just as Maxwell did earlier, sort of keeping on the watts. There they go, shutting it down a little bit. It's good to have that little test under my belt. I'm just trying to get a feel. I knew that this did have multiple laps in the middle of it, but I wasn't exactly sure what even after reading the route description on Zwift Insider, I wasn't exactly familiar with how the laps were structured. So I'm happy here to just kind of record the data about, you know, about how the laps are going to go in these first couple, so that I'm more prepared for where the attacks will come. So here's another little bump coming up where people will wind up the watts. You can see Maxwell going again, and the rest of the group responding. So just shutting this down again and looking forward to getting a little bit of recovery on the back end here. So here with 6 kilometers to go, I'm in the back of the group drafting, surviving the little attacks or the attacks that come over the little inclines. I'm feeling still relatively strong here, 307 watt average for the 24 minutes. Currently sitting at 160 beats a minute. My max heart rate is recorded as 191. It's been a long time since I've hit 190. I often get into the 180s, which you'll see me get into at a certain point during this race. So here I'm thinking that I am stronger potentially than some other riders in this group, if not a majority of them. Whether or not that's true, that was my impression during the ride. I didn't have any problem staying with the group with any of their attacks. They seem to have a problem staying with my initial attack up the summit south in the initial. So here I go. I decide, given all that I'm going to try to do a little break. So I put in an effort here, come from behind the group on the hill, put in some watts to get up this climb, immediately get a 30-meter gap, 2-second gap, and I stay on the watts here. And I, at this point, have decided that I'm going to attempt a 5-kilometer solo breakaway. So you can see here at this point, there we go, up over 180 beats a minute. I am no longer feeling as strong and questioning my decision, but I've made it, and I figured I would try to stick with it, right? So I was encouraged by the fact that I continue to put in some time to the group. So 7 seconds, the group is behind and they're not doing the watts that I'm doing. I know on the flats, it's likely that the majority of that group on the flats is, if they're not putting out similar watts per kilogram as me, that they're not going to catch me. I mean, obviously the group dynamics would help them come up, but if they're, at 3 watts a kilogram and I can keep it at 4-ish, then I thought I had a good chance of staying away. So here I'm just trying to focus and put in a good cadence, good power to the pedals, try to put a little more power on the inclines and not let my rider weight of 95 kilograms hold me back too much on the inclines. So here, a little bit after the break, you can see it's kind of stabilized at that 7-second mark, and I'm starting to question it here with this little bump coming. I knew that it was possible, unless I put in a really big dig, which I didn't do necessarily a big dig here, that this would allow the group to come back a little bit. If they're all working together, there's still a large group of about 8 or 9 riders. So I know that they have the group advantage here, and so up that climb I kept it at 7, the gap at 7, although you can see 6 seconds there for Q Cesard. And so group coming down to 6 seconds. I'm not sure that I should have let off the watts. I probably should have tried to, so you can see me there coasting. I was trying to get some recovery and just hope that I could regain a little bit, but that probably didn't do me any favors. I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't happy to see this little bump coming. So we're in the part of the course that's different than those 3 Rebel Route laps, right? Like these climb successions are new. So if I had done, like, I wish I had done a recon of this route as a ride, so I could know that this was what was coming, and I could, because I'm in this, at this point, even, you know, from that breakaway, the time I decided to break away, I was blind as to what was coming in the route. So here I'm feeling it. Obviously the group is coming back now, and now I'm questioning, okay, am I gonna try? So here I just want to try to keep up some sort of pressure on this climb, but not necessarily sap my legs too much. I'm feeling pretty spent at this point, and looking forward to getting back to the group, hoping that they don't just put in a counterattack and surge past, which they didn't, or if they did, it wasn't a sustained one. And so here I'm just trying to recover and stay back with the group. I actually, at this point, did not know what the end of the race was. I thought that I knew based on the Zwift Insider route description, but I did not know that this ends with climbing up the same climb that we started in the lead-in, that Summit South climb. So once I see that, I really got a little dejected mentally. The legs were feeling it. You can see me kind of swaying back and forth there, no longer as controlled. We have one person breaking away there. At this point, if I was feeling strong, I would have shut that down, but I have no ability to really follow that wheel at this point. So now I know that it's a race for second, given how that rider is getting away. I don't think this group with 1.4 kilometers is going to catch them. So I know it's a race for second here, and I'm not feeling strong at all. I'm wondering if I'm going to be at the back of this pack or what's going to happen. So I really am taking it pedal stroke by pedal stroke here. So once I see this turn, I'm like, oh no. I realized that the only way this is going to go is up that summit again with a kilometer to go, and this was a real mental test here. So I had to buckle down and just try to stay with the group. You know, actually at this point my glasses were fogging up quite a bit, and it was kind of hard for me to see who was around me in the group, what the gaps were, what kind of effort the other riders were putting in. So I was, you know, literally a little blind here. But at this point, I'm just trying to give it what I can. If any rider put in a big dig here, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to follow it. I was encouraged to see that rider that had broken away is actually not that far up the road and not sustaining big watts. So at this point, kind of, you know, a third of the way up this climb, I was encouraged to see that the group, you know, obviously there's a gap to those riders ahead, but I was encouraged that I was able to at least stay with them a little bit. And so I knew we have a little bit of a flattish section coming up here before the big final push. So if I had a little more in me here, I needed a little bit more composure, and I could have recovered, I think, from that breakaway mishap and put in a real good effort in the sprint to the line. But I was really feeling it here. I see the feather power-ups pop, and again, I can't really see through the fog on my glasses, so I was happy that people weren't breaking away, like, you know, substantially, but still being behind. I was happy I passed a couple of riders. I couldn't actually tell how many riders I passed, but and here I give up a little bit before the line. I should have stayed on the pedals. All in all, an interesting race. So we see I got 5th here, 3.4 watts per kilogram average for the 33 minutes and 40 seconds, 325 raw watts. So we see the Zwift power here, just a few seconds off the rider in first. Congrats to the riders though, they did a good job closing down the ride. So you can see here, my Zwift Racing Score went up 7 points to 491. So there's that creeping back up towards the BCAT, that 520. I assume if the trend continues, considering after being updated to 475 a few races ago and having gained 16 points after 3 races, if that trend continues, I assume it'll be maybe a couple more weeks of this kind of racing, if all things being equal. That I might be back up in that B category. I would be at the bottom of it, but I would be up there for better or worse. It's interesting being in the C category because, when I got here in the C cat, I really questioned whether or not, I didn't know if it would be fair to other riders actually that I was there. It just didn't seem fair. It turns out that it's, it's competitive here, and I seem to be well placed, at least for the decisions that I've been making. It's interesting to be here and learn the tactics, be able to be in the front on a climb like that in a group this size, that me being in the front on that climb, me being able to not being able to break away, but possibly being able to break away. That wouldn't have happened. And I've been in B for years, literally years. So I have a lot of experience with the dynamics of the B riders. It was a good race, good little short effort here. 33 minutes of good riding, good tactics, good learning experience, great group. Congrats again to the riders ahead and behind on their efforts. Here we can see my effort, 69 TSS, 300 watt average for that includes the little downhill I did just to take advantage of the free distance going down. But that's it for this ride. Appreciate it. Give it a like, comment on anything that you think. If you think differently or similarly to what I think about this, subscribe if you feel inclined, and I'll talk to you all later.